Have you ever wondered about the origins of the humble chicken? It seems ordinary, pecking at the ground, yet it holds one of humankind's most perplexing questions. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? A playful paradox, a mental loop. It ties the present to an unimaginable past. To answer it, we must travel back millennia. We must explore the very fabric of life, the intricate dance of evolution. The chicken and egg become symbols of a grander story, a narrative of transformation still unfolding. So, let us begin this quest, an exploration into the nature of existence. We will peel back the layers of this ancient question, and gain a new appreciation for the diversity of life on our world. It is easy to dismiss the chicken and egg problem as a trivial brain teaser, but to do so would be to miss its true significance. This question is a gateway to understanding fundamental concepts in biology, philosophy, and even the way we perceive time itself. It serves as a metaphor for complex scientific and philosophical dilemmas. When we ask about the chicken and the egg, we are really asking about origins, about the nature of change, and about the processes that drive the evolution of all species. The chicken and egg question forces us to confront the idea of gradual change. Furthermore, this riddle touches upon the philosophical concept of a first cause. We are using them as a lens through which to view the grand tapestry of evolution. The answer is woven into the very code of life, a story of tiny mutations and vast stretches of time. To appreciate the depth of our question, we must travel back in time through history. The chicken and egg paradox is an ancient puzzle, pondered by classical thinkers like Aristotle. He contemplated infinity and causality, believing both chicken and egg co-eternal. Plutarch recorded a dinner party debate titled, "Whether the hen or the egg came first." Some argued for the egg, others for the chicken. This reveals something profound about the human mind. They were using logic to try and make sense of the world's most fundamental mysteries. It was a perfect illustration of a seemingly unsolvable problem. The riddle became a symbol of ultimate origins. As knowledge expanded, the debate evolved. With the rise of monotheistic religions, the question took on a new theological dimension. For many, the answer was found within their sacred texts. The book of Genesis describes God creating every winged fowl. In this worldview, the chicken came first, created as a complete, adult animal. The egg was a secondary product. This perspective, known as creationism, provided a clear start. For centuries, this was the dominant answer throughout much of the Western world. However, the scientific revolution began to plant new seeds of doubt. Naturalists started to observe the world with a new rigor. Evidence suggested that life was not static, but dynamic. This set the stage for a significant intellectual shift. The chicken and egg question was no longer just philosophical. It was becoming a scientific one. We stand at a fascinating crossroads. We're stepping into modern science, a realm of evidence and discovery. We'll seek answers in biology, genetics, and paleontology. Our first stop, Charles Darwin and evolution by natural selection. Species are constantly molded by their environment. From there, we'll dive into DNA. Genetics has unlocked secrets inaccessible just generations ago. We'll learn about mutations, small changes in DNA, the raw material of evolution. A creature similar to a chicken laid an egg with a tiny genetic change. This mutation created the first true chicken. The fossil record shows the reptilian ancestors of birds. Combining evolution with genetics, we construct an evidence-based answer. Let's proceed, the answer awaits. Sir. To begin our quest, we travel back in time. Our first destination, ancient Greece. Here, the chicken and egg question was a serious philosophical problem. They were obsessed with origins and the fundamental nature of reality. The cycle of a chicken laying an egg presented them with a profound conundrum. It was a perfect miniature version of the universe's greatest mysteries. The ancient Greek mind was fascinated by cycles they saw everywhere. If everything comes from something else, what did the very first thing come from? The chicken and egg paradox became a favorite tool for exploring this idea. It was a simple example of an infinite loop of cause and effect, with no clear starting point. Imagine philosophers debating, did the egg, a vessel of potential, precede the chicken? Or how can an egg exist without a parent to create it? And so, trapped in a perfect circle of logic, there was no easy escape. Among these great thinkers was Aristotle. He was a biologist, a physicist, and a philosopher who sought to understand the entire world. When he considered the chicken and egg problem, he saw it as a reflection of the fundamental structure of the cosmos. For Aristotle, the universe itself was eternal. An egg is a chicken in potentiality. A chicken is a chicken in actuality. Actuality must always precede potentiality. Therefore, an actual chicken must exist before a potential chicken, the egg. Because he believed the universe was eternal, he concluded that the chain of cause and effect had no beginning. Both the chicken and the egg had, in a sense, always existed, mirroring the eternal nature of the universe itself. This is a breathtaking concept. It is a profoundly different way of seeing the world compared to our modern view. The question became a popular topic of conversation. Plutarch recorded one such discussion. In his work, the Moralia, he describes a lively debate during a symposium, a Greek dinner party. The guests debated whether the hen or the egg came first. 2,000 years ago, people were captivated by this puzzle. The arguments were sharp and insightful, moving into natural observation. One guest argued for the egg, that nature progresses from simple to complex. Another guest championed the chicken. His argument was one of creation and design. This debate reveals the enduring power of the question, forcing us to confront fundamental ideas. These ancient thinkers wrestled with the core tensions of biology. It's a timeless human quest for understanding. As the classical world gave way to the Middle Ages, the framework for the debate shifted dramatically. The rise of the great monotheistic faiths, particularly Christianity in the Western world, provided a new and powerful lens through which to view the question of origins. The philosophical musings of the Greeks, with their eternal cycles and infinite chains, were largely replaced by a narrative with a clear and definite beginning. For theologians and believers, the answer to the chicken and egg riddle was no longer a matter of logical debate, but of divine revelation, found within the pages of their sacred texts. According to the account of creation in the book of Genesis, God created all living things in a series of distinct acts. On the fifth day, the text says, God created the great creatures of the sea and every winged bird according to its kind. In this interpretation, the answer to the riddle is unequivocal. The chicken came first. It was brought into existence as a fully formed adult creature created directly by God. There was no preceding egg, no long line of ancestors, but a sudden miraculous appearance of the complete animal, which was then given the ability to reproduce. This creationist viewpoint elegantly resolves the philosophical paradox. The infinite regress that so troubled the Greek philosophers is stopped by introducing an all-powerful first cause, the Creator. The chicken was not the product of a preceding chicken, but of a divine act. This provided a comforting and absolute answer that aligned perfectly with a worldview in which the universe and all life within it were the purposeful design of a higher intelligence. For well over 1,000 years, this was the dominant and largely unchallenged answer throughout much of the world. The debate for many was considered settled by faith. This perspective highlights a deep human need for a definitive starting point. The idea of an infinite, uncaused chain can be unsettling. A creation story provides a firm foundation, a moment in time to which all subsequent events can be traced. The chicken, therefore, was not just an animal but a symbol of this divine order. It stood as a testament to a world created with purpose and design, where every creature was made in its perfect final form from the very beginning. The egg was simply the mechanism that God had designed for these perfect creations to propagate through time. For centuries, the story of divine creation provided a solid and comforting answer. However, as the Middle Ages waned and the Renaissance bloomed, a new spirit of inquiry began to sweep across Europe. This was the dawn of the scientific revolution, a time when observation and evidence began to challenge long-held traditions and beliefs. Thinkers were no longer content to rely solely on ancient texts or philosophical reasoning. They began to look at the natural world with fresh eyes, armed with new tools like the microscope and the telescope, and a relentless curiosity to understand how things worked. This new age of reason did not immediately overthrow the old ideas, but it began to plant seeds of doubt. Naturalists started to meticulously catalog and compare different species of plants and animals. They studied the intricate development of embryos within eggs, marveling at the complex processes that turned a simple yolk into a living creature. They saw a world that operated according to consistent, observable laws. This growing body of knowledge hinted at a natural history for the world, a story written not in scripture, but in the anatomy and behavior of living things themselves. The chicken and egg question, once a settled matter of theology, started to become problematic again. If all creatures were created perfectly in their final form, why was there so much variety? Why did some animals have strange, seemingly useless features? And why did the embryos of different species, like a chicken and a lizard, look so remarkably similar in their earliest stages? These were difficult questions that could not be easily answered by the traditional creation narrative. The world appeared to be far more complex and interconnected than a simple story of separate creation events would suggest. This period of intellectual ferment set the stage for a monumental shift in our understanding of life. The focus began to move away from asking who created the first chicken, and towards asking how the first chicken came to be through natural processes. The puzzle was moving from the realm of philosophy and theology into the emerging field of biology. The old certainties were beginning to crack, and through those cracks, a new and revolutionary idea about the history of life on Earth was beginning to shine through, promising to reignite the ancient debate on a completely new footing. Perhaps the most unsettling challenge to the old worldview came not from the living world, but from the dead. All across Europe, people were digging into the earth to build canals, mines, and quarries. And as they dug, they found strange and wonderful things like the stony imprints of seashells on mountaintops and the enormous bones of creatures unlike anything that walked the earth. These fossils told a silent but powerful story of a world that was incredibly old and had changed profoundly over time. As more fossils were unearthed, the evidence became overwhelming. There were distinct layers of rock, each with its own unique set of fossils. The deeper one dug, the stranger the creatures seemed, suggesting a succession of different worlds. This idea of extinction was revolutionary and deeply troubling. The fossil record was a silent testament to change, suggesting life was slowly, gradually, transforming. This unsettling murmur from the rocks demanded a new theory of life. In the 19th century, a time of steam engines and exploration, Charles Darwin meticulously observed nature. From finches to barnacles, he developed the revolutionary theory of evolution by natural selection. Darwin proposed that life is constantly changing. Advantageous traits increase the likelihood of reproduction, passing those traits to offspring. Over time, these changes accumulate, leading to new species. This slow, natural process reframes questions of origins. It envisions a long, slow, seamless transition. This dangerous idea suggests all life evolved naturally. The question becomes one of biological history and ancestry. Darwin's theory gave us the tree of life. It is not a straight line, but a vast, branching tree. The trunk represents the earliest forms of life, and every branch and twig represents a different species, living or extinct. Every living thing is connected through this tree, sharing a common ancestry. The chicken and the eagle are on the same branch. Species diverge from a common ancestor. Speciation is how the diversity of life arose from a single ancient root. The chicken is a living descendant of the dinosaurs. It is a direct, scientifically established ancestral link. With the concept of gradual evolution firmly in our minds, let us return to the heart of the paradox. We are looking for a beginning, but evolution tells us that all beginnings are, well, kind of fuzzy. So let us imagine a creature from the distant past. It looks very much like a chicken. It walks like a chicken and clucks like something similar to a chicken. Let us call this creature the proto-chicken, or the not-quite-a-chicken. This proto-chicken belongs to a population of similar creatures, all of them breeding and passing on their genes. They are, for all intents and purposes, the immediate ancestors of the modern chicken. Now, life's code, DNA, is not a perfect copying machine. Every time it is passed from parent to offspring, tiny random changes can occur. These are called mutations. Most mutations are harmless or honestly have no effect at all. Some can be harmful, but very, very rarely, a mutation occurs that provides a small advantage. It might be a slight change in feather structure that gives better insulation, or a subtle alteration in beak shape that is better for cracking a particular type of seed. This is the raw material of evolution, the source of all new traits. One day, one of our proto-chickens produces an egg. But inside that egg, a tiny random mutation has occurred in the DNA of the developing embryo. This mutation is the crucial difference. It is the genetic change that, in the eyes of a biologist defining species, pushes this new creature over the invisible line from being a proto-chicken to being the very first true chicken. All of its physical characteristics, its biology, its very essence, are now encoded by the DNA of what we would classify as Gallus domesticus, the domestic chicken. The change is small, but it is definitive. So what do we have here? We have a proto-chicken, a creature that is not a chicken laying an egg, but the embryo developing inside that egg is different. It carries the key mutation. When that egg hatches, the creature that emerges is the very first chicken. Therefore, a not quite a chicken laid the egg from which the first true chicken hatched. The egg, containing the crucial genetic change, must have existed before the animal defined by that change. The egg, in this very specific evolutionary sense, came first. It was the vessel that carried the brand new blueprint for the first member of the new species. To truly appreciate this answer, we must zoom out even further. The story of the chicken's egg did not begin with the proto-chicken. It began hundreds of millions of years earlier. The egg, as a reproductive strategy, is an ancient and honestly pretty brilliant evolutionary innovation. The very first eggs were laid not by birds but by fish, amphibians and insects, often in water. They were simple, soft-shelled things. But a major breakthrough happened around 340 million years ago with the evolution of the amniotic egg. This was a revolutionary development that allowed vertebrates to finally conquer the land. The amniotic egg was a self-contained life support system. It had a tough, protective outer shell that prevented the inside from drying out. Within it, a series of membranes created a private little pond for the embryo to develop in. There was the amnion, which surrounded the embryo in a sac of fluid. There was a yolk sac for nourishment and another sac to store waste. This incredible package allowed animals to lay their eggs on dry land, far from the ponds and swamps their ancestors were tied to. This innovation was the key to the success of the reptiles, which went on to dominate the planet. The dinosaurs were masters of the amniotic egg. They laid them in vast nesting grounds in all shapes and sizes, from eggs as small as a marble to ones larger than a rugby ball. And as we now know, birds are not just related to dinosaurs, they are dinosaurs. They are a surviving lineage of theropod dinosaurs, the group that included giants like Tyrannosaurus rex. So when we look at a chicken's egg, we are looking at a modern version of a dinosaur egg. The fundamental technology, the amniotic structure, is a direct inheritance from their ancient reptilian ancestors. This deep history reinforces our conclusion: the egg as a biological concept is vastly older than the chicken. Long before any creature that even remotely resembled a bird existed, animals were laying hard-shelled amniotic eggs. The lineage that would eventually lead to chickens had been laying these types of eggs for millions upon millions of years. The specific egg that contained the first chicken was just one link in an almost unimaginably long chain of egg laying. The egg was a well-established piece of biological hardware long before the chicken software was ever written. Let us take a moment to appreciate the egg itself. We often see it as a simple food item, but it is truly one of nature's most perfect designs. The hard shell, which seems so solid, is actually porous. It's covered in thousands of tiny holes that allow oxygen to enter and carbon dioxide to leave, enabling the growing embryo to breathe. The shell is made of calcium carbonate, the same material found in seashells and limestone. It provides robust protection against the outside world while being just weak enough for the chick to break out of when the time is right. Inside, the environment is perfectly controlled. The albumin, or egg white, is mostly protein and water. It provides a cushion against shocks and protects the embryo from microbial invaders. The yolk is the power pack. It's a rich store of vitamins, minerals, and fats. All the energy the embryo needs to grow from a single cell into a fully formed chick over the course of just 3 weeks. Two little twisted rope-like structures called chalazae anchor the yolk in the center of the albumin, keeping it safe and suspended, no matter which way the egg is turned. This intricate design was not created for the chicken. It was perfected over hundreds of millions of years of reptilian and dinosaur evolution. Each component was fine-tuned by natural selection to give the offspring the best possible chance of survival. The chicken simply inherited this masterpiece of biological engineering from its ancestors. When the proto-chicken laid its fateful egg, it was using a reproductive system that had been tested and refined through countless eons. The egg was not a new invention, it was an ancient legacy. So when we hold a chicken's egg in our hand, we are holding a direct link to the age of dinosaurs and beyond. It is, in a way, a time capsule. A vessel containing a biological strategy that is hundreds of millions of years old. This perspective makes the answer to our riddle even clearer. The physical object we call an egg, with its shell, yolk, and life-sustaining membranes, existed long before the specific bird we call a chicken. The hardware was ancient. The evolutionary event was simply a tiny software update, a small mutation, that occurred inside one of these pre-existing time-tested vessels. To complete the picture, let's trace the final steps of this grand evolutionary story. We must travel back to the Jurassic period, around 150 million years ago. Here, amongst the giant dinosaurs, we find small, feathered theropods. These creatures were a crucial link. They had the sharp teeth and long, bony tails of their dinosaur ancestors, but they were also covered in feathers. One of the most famous examples is Archaeopteryx, a fossil found in Germany that beautifully captures this transition. It had the skeleton of a small dinosaur but the wings and feathers of a bird. These early avian dinosaurs were laying amniotic eggs, just as their larger relatives were. Over millions of years, this lineage continued to evolve. Natural selection favored traits useful for flight and a new way of life. Skeletons became lighter, bony tails were replaced by a fan of feathers, and teeth were lost in favor of a lightweight beak. Each step in this journey was marked by a creature laying an egg that contained a slightly modified offspring. A dinosaur laid the egg that hatched the first animal we might call a true bird, an Archaeopteryx or something like it. This process continued, with the bird branch of the tree of life diversifying into thousands of different forms. Following the mass extinction event that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs 66 million years ago, birds flourished, filling the empty skies. One of these bird lineages evolved into the group we call galliforms. And within that group, a specific line of jungle fowl in Southeast Asia continued to change. It was from this wild jungle fowl that the domestic chicken was eventually bred by humans only a few thousand years ago, so we can see the pattern repeating at every level. A reptile laid the egg that hatched the first dinosaur. A dinosaur laid the egg that hatched the first bird. A pre-bird laid the egg that hatched the first modern bird. And finally, a proto-chicken, a wild jungle fowl, laid the egg that contained the small genetic changes that would define the first true chicken. At every significant evolutionary step, the egg, the vessel of change, had to come before the new creature that hatched from it. The biological and evolutionary answer is clear, consistent, and written in stone, feathers, and genes. The egg came first. Our journey has taken us through philosophy and deep into evolutionary time. We have seen how the theory of evolution provides a powerful framework for answering our question. But now, we arrive in the present day, in the clean, bright world of the modern laboratory. Here, scientists have tools and techniques that Charles Darwin could have only dreamed of. They are no longer limited to studying fossils or the outward appearance of an animal. They can now read the very instruction manual of life itself. This has brought a new, extraordinary level of precision to the chicken and egg debate. The most powerful tool in this modern toolkit is genetics. Every living organism, from a tiny bacterium to a giant blue whale, carries its life story written in a molecule called DNA. This long, spiraling chain contains the complete set of instructions, the genes, for building and operating that organism. By sequencing the genome of a chicken, scientists can read its entire genetic blueprint, letter by letter. They can compare it to the DNA of other birds, like its wild ancestor, the red jungle fowl, and even to more distant relatives like crocodiles, their closest living non-bird relatives. This allows us to see the exact genetic differences that make a chicken. Alongside genetics, we have the field of molecular biology. This allows us to understand not just what the genes are, but what they do. Scientists can study proteins, the molecular machines that are built using the instructions in the DNA. They can investigate how a specific gene leads to the production of a specific protein, and how that protein then performs a particular job in the body. For our question, this is crucial. We can now identify the specific proteins responsible for making an eggshell, for instance, and trace the genes that code for them. This gives us an incredibly detailed view of the biology at play. Finally, we have powerful computational biology. The sheer amount of genetic data we can now generate is immense. A chicken's genome contains about 1 billion DNA letters. Powerful computers and sophisticated software are needed to store, analyze, and compare this information. Scientists can use these tools to build incredibly detailed evolutionary trees, tracing the history of specific genes through time. They can pinpoint when certain genetic changes likely occurred. This combination of DNA sequencing, molecular biology, and computing gives us an unprecedented ability to solve biological puzzles, including our age-old riddle. So, what happens when we apply modern tools to the chicken? The first step is to read its entire genetic code, its genome. The chicken was one of the very first birds to have its genome fully sequenced. This gave us a complete parts list for building a chicken. We found it has roughly the same number of genes as humans. These genes are the instructions for everything, from the color of its feathers to the shape of its beak, and crucially, how it makes an egg. By comparing the chicken's genome to that of its closest wild relative, the red jungle fowl of Southeast Asia, scientists can see evolution in action. We can see the genetic changes that humans have selected for over thousands of years of domestication. This comparison confirms that the domestic chicken is a modified version of the red jungle fowl. The egg was the vessel that contained this evolutionary event. DNA is like a text constantly being copied. Each time DNA is duplicated, small errors or mutations can occur. Mutations happen at a predictable rate, allowing scientists to use them as a molecular clock. By comparing genetic differences, they estimate when species shared a common ancestor. This helps place the chicken's domestication around 7,000 to 10,000 years ago. The chicken lineage diverged from turkeys about 40 million years ago. Mutations are the engine of evolution, a slow accumulation of tiny changes. Mutations happen during reproduction in sperm or egg cells. The egg contains the new genetic information, the mutation. A few years ago, a scientific discovery was widely reported in the news. Researchers identified a crucial protein called OV17, found only in the chicken's uterus. It speeds up the development of the hard calcium carbonate shell. Headlines proclaim the chicken must have come first. This gave us insight into the molecular machinery a chicken uses to build its egg. However, this misses the bigger evolutionary picture. The chicken's ancestors had a similar but slightly different version of this protein to make their own eggshells. A mutation changed the ancestral gene into the one that now produces OV17. The egg containing the new genetic instruction had to exist before the chicken. The discovery of OV17 actually provides a perfect molecular example of exactly how it works. Let us paint a final, clear picture using all our modern scientific knowledge. Imagine a flock of wild red jungle fowl living in a forest in Southeast Asia thousands of years ago. They look almost identical to chickens, but genetically, they are still wild birds. They lay eggs, but not as frequently as domestic chickens. They are wary of predators and are perfectly adapted to their jungle home. These are our proto-chickens. They are laying eggs and raising chicks, passing on their red jungle fowl DNA, generation after generation, just as their ancestors had done for millions of years before them. Now, in one of these birds, as it forms an egg, a tiny random copying error occurs in the DNA. Let's say this mutation affects a gene that controls growth or temperament. The bird lays its egg completely unaware of the momentous change that has occurred within. The egg looks just like any other red jungle fowl egg. It is incubated and cared for in the same way, but the genetic instructions inside are subtly different. This egg is the carrier of a new potential, a legacy waiting to be hatched. It is, in essence, the very first chicken egg. When the egg hatches, the chick that emerges is slightly different from its siblings. Perhaps it grows a little faster, or it's a little less fearful of the early humans who are starting to manage the forests. This trait makes it more likely to survive and thrive in the new environment being shaped by people. Humans notice this useful trait and selectively protect and breed this bird and its descendants. Over many generations, more mutations accumulate and are selected for, leading to the creature we know today as the domestic chicken, Gallus domesticus. This story, pieced together from genetic evidence, shows us the definitive sequence of events. First, you have the parent, the proto-chicken. Second, you have the reproductive process where a mutation occurs, creating an egg with a new set of instructions. This is the chicken egg. Third, you have the hatching of that egg, which releases the new creature, the first chicken. The order is clear: proto-chicken, then chicken egg, then chicken. The egg is the essential, transitional stage. It is the bridge between one species and the next, the vessel that carries the legacy of a tiny, crucial change. So after our journey through modern science, what is the final verdict from the laboratory? When we pose the question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? To a biologist, a geneticist, or an evolutionary scientist, the answer is unambiguous and confident. The egg came first. This is not a matter of philosophical opinion or a trick of logic. It is a conclusion based on a deep and detailed understanding of the mechanisms of life, evolution, and heredity. The evidence is written in the DNA of every cell of every chicken on the planet. To be absolutely precise, the answer is that an egg laid by a bird that was not quite a chicken contained the embryo that, due to a small genetic mutation, was the first chicken. The egg is the container for the next generation. Evolution works by changing that next generation, not by changing the adult parent. Therefore, the vessel of change, the egg, must precede the result of that change, the new organism. The physical object we know as an egg existed for hundreds of millions of years before the specific creature we call a chicken ever appeared on the tree of life. This scientific answer does not diminish the magic of the question. In fact, it enhances it. It transforms a simple paradox into a gateway for understanding the magnificent, sprawling story of evolution. It reveals a world of constant, gradual change, driven by tiny, random events accumulating over immense spans of time. It connects the humble farm bird in a way that is both direct and profound to the age of dinosaurs and the very first creatures that crawled onto the land. It is a far more wondrous and awe-inspiring story than a simple choice between two options. The verdict from the laboratory is clear. The case is closed, but the debate will surely live on in our culture, because the question is so beautifully simple, and the evolutionary answer is so wonderfully complex. It will continue to be a playful brain teaser for children, and a topic of fun debate among friends. But for those who wish to know, science has provided a clear resolution. The egg, the ancient vessel of life and the crucible of all evolutionary change, definitively came before the chicken. We've journeyed through philosophy, science, and genetics, and science tells us the egg came first. Yet, the question endures. Because it's a riddle of definitions and perspectives. For our final act, let's reopen the debate, not for truth, but for the fun of argument. Team Chicken will argue the bird came first. Team Egg that the egg did, the heart of the debate. Is a chicken egg defined by its parent or its contents? Let's hear the best arguments from both sides. Let the great debate begin. Team Chicken's case is simple. Every chicken egg you've seen was laid by a chicken. By this logic, a chicken egg is, by definition, an egg laid by a chicken. The chicken is the manufacturer. The egg its product. No chicken, no chicken egg. The egg's survival depends on the chicken's care. Warmth, protection, turning. Without the chicken, the egg is just a fragile object. Team Chicken argues, the bird must come first to create and nurture the egg. It's common sense. Hard to argue against unless you change the definitions. Team Chicken wields a scientific trump card, the protein OV17, essential for forming a chicken eggshell. Only chickens produce this protein and only in their bodies. No chicken, no OV17, no OV17, no chicken egg. This seems to clinch the case. The chicken had to exist first to make the egg. The protein paradox grounds the debate in biology, not just logic. The chicken is the only factory with the recipe for the modern egg. Team Egg's argument is rooted in evolution. The first true chicken existed as a genetic mutation, inside an egg laid by a proto-chicken. The egg is where new genetics appear. The parent wasn't a chicken, but the offspring was. So, the egg containing the first chicken came before the chicken itself. Team Egg defines a chicken egg by its contents, not its parent. Even the gene for OV17 first appeared in an embryo inside an egg. The egg is the vessel of evolutionary change, the true origin. Both sides make compelling cases. Team Chicken relies on everyday logic and definitions. Team Egg on genetics and evolution. If you define a chicken egg by its parent, the chicken came first. If you define it by its contents, the egg did. In philosophy, both sides can win depending on your rules. But in science, the evidence is clear. The egg came first. Evolution's changes begin in the egg, the cradle of novelty. Our journey began with a simple riddle and led us through philosophy, faith, and science. Ancient thinkers saw the chicken and egg as a cosmic loop. Theology gave the chicken primacy. Darwin and evolution reframed the question. Life is a chain of gradual change. Genetics revealed the egg as the vessel where new species are born. The chicken is just one update in a long line of eggs stretching back to dinosaurs. The evidence, from fossils to DNA, points to a single answer. The egg came first. So, what is the final answer? There are two answers, both correct, depending on the rules. This duality is why the riddle has endured. It operates on language and common sense, and scientific reality. Understanding both is key to resolving the paradox. It satisfies both the poet and the biologist. Philosophically, if a chicken egg is laid by a chicken, the chicken came first. Scientifically, definitions are based on biological fact. Evolution makes small genetic changes. A proto-chicken laid an egg. Inside, a mutation occurred, creating the first true chicken. Therefore, the egg came before the chicken. The egg came first. This resolution enriches the riddle. A simple question can contain layers of complexity. Intuition isn't always a reliable guide. Both answers can be true. Perhaps the greatest gift is a newfound sense of wonder. We have taken two of the most ordinary things imaginable, a chicken and an egg, and by asking a simple question about them, we have unlocked an extraordinary story. It serves as a powerful reminder that the world around us, even in its most familiar forms, is brimming with mystery, history, and incredible tales of origin, if we only take a moment to look closely and ask questions. Think of the humble egg. It is a masterpiece of biological engineering, an ancient technology perfected over hundreds of millions of years. And what of the chicken? It is a living dinosaur, a twig on the great tree of life with roots that go deep into the prehistoric past. This is the true magic of scientific inquiry. It takes the mundane and makes it magnificent. It encourages us to keep our curiosity alive, and to remember that extraordinary stories are often hidden in the most ordinary of places, waiting for us to discover them. However, our journey to answer one of history's greatest riddles has come to an end. By looking at the world through the lens of science, we can find clear answers to questions that once seemed impossible. The egg came before the chicken. But this single answer is not truly the end of our quest. Instead, it is an invitation to keep asking questions, to never let your sense of wonder fade. The universe is vast and filled with mysteries far grander than this one. Think of the questions that still await us. Each of these questions is a doorway into a new adventure of discovery. The spirit that drives scientists today to explore the deepest oceans and the furthest reaches of space is one of the most powerful and precious aspects of being human. Nurturing that curiosity in ourselves and in others is the most important thing we can do. So, as we part ways, I encourage you to carry the spirit of this journey with you. Challenge your assumptions, seek out new knowledge, and never be afraid to ask why. The story of how it all came to be is the greatest story ever told. The quest for knowledge is a journey without end. Subscribe to the channel to explore more mysteries of the universe.